How does one turn a childhood fascination into life's work? What can failure teach us about resilience, even act as a trampoline to launch us forward? How does one recognize and follow the subtle signals of their own intellectual curiosity? Hello, this is Ananda Biswas, and welcome to the Decoding Transitions, the DPT Podcast, where we decode the fascinating career phases of brilliant minds in academia and beyond. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Iverina Ivanova, a linguist and researcher whose love for language has taken her from the classrooms in Bulgaria to an academic career in Germany. She is currently working as a postdoctoral researcher and lecturer in linguistics at the Goethe University Frankfurt. She began her academic career at Sofia University in Bulgaria, earning a bachelor's degree in English Philology. She then continued her studies at the Philip University of Marburg, completing a master's degree in linguistics and web technologies, an experience that allowed her to bridge her passion for language with emerging digital technologies. Today, her work combines research, teaching, and innovation at the intersection of language and technologies, contributing to both academic inquiry and practical applications in the field. Her core research areas are English syntax, natural language processing, and corpus linguistics, to name a few. In this first part of our conversation, we walk alongside Dr. Ivanova as she weaves together language, technology, and resilience, showing how challenges can be transformed into stepping stones. We talk about failure as a trampoline, resilience, and eventually combining her linguistic skills with technology to craft a unique career. Whether you are a student, researcher, or someone looking for inspiration after setbacks, this conversation will leave you with practical insights and fresh motivations. So let's jump right in. Here's my conversation with Dr. Iverina Ivanova. Welcome, Eva, to the podcast Decoding Transitions.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very, very excited for our discussion. I would like to know that you chose your path to be a linguist, and what are the roots of this choice, and how did you fall in love with linguistics? Was there any point in your career or in your childhood or an adult life that you found that linguistics is calling you and this is your calling?
I can surely tell you, perhaps not in so many details, but I can tell you how my journey in linguistics basically started. It goes back to when I was very young, back in the days when I used to live in my hometown in Bulgaria. I'm very much grateful, I should say this, to my parents because they have never restrained me into what I would like to do and what kind of direction of studies I should go into. So they basically were very good observants of what I'm interested in. So when I started learning languages, and in particular, my first foreign language was when I started school, primary school. And they noticed that I have particular interests in listening to the language, also communicating more with the teacher, spending after class times listening to English words, basically augmenting my language knowledge in this respect. So they have noticed this, they have observed that it's not just a subject in school for me, but it's something that I transfer outside school, even
How did
at
it
home.
look like?
Well, they noticed that, for instance, when I was learning certain words in English, because that was my very first foreign language that I acquired, and I don't consider myself a bilingual because I started that late, at the age of 7, learning my first foreign language. So after coming back from school, they noticed that I started naming words in English. So random words from the room or in the kitchen or what my mom was doing, I started translating them into that particular language.
Wow.
So I realized that this is something that I could do, that I have already acquired while listening to the teacher in class, that I know these words not only in my mother tongue, in Bulgarian, but I know them in another language.
Wow. And this started already at grade 1 or
Exactly. Grade
two?
1, grade 2.
Okay.
And it was making progress later.
Okay.
By coming up with your own stories in the other language.
Wow.
Or working on posters at home in your spare time. So this
I
was
see.
not part of, let's say, the school curriculum. It was something that I was coming up with so that I can make use of that language. And why I thought that this was interesting for me, I thought that it made me different from the rest of the people around me. My parents, they have studied Russian, and my mom has studied French at school. So they were not fluent speakers of these languages, but they could express themselves in these languages. But no one, apart from my brother, have studied English. So my brother could understand me, but my parents didn't understand me.
Yeah.
And all the rest of my surroundings also didn't understand me. So this made me stand out. Let's put it like this.
Yeah, but that also makes me think that as a kid, when nobody understands you, if you express it in a language that nobody understands you, you tend to stop expressing yourself, either or restrict yourself or try to conform to saying that okay, they do understand this language, let's only communicate in there. What kept you motivated at that stage?
I believe you're right about this, but at that time, I didn't have that kind of feedback from them that this is something wrong, that this is
Not wrong in the sense that, did you get the feedback they are understanding, or did you get the feedback that they are might be appreciating and it boosted your
Yes.
spirit? Okay.
I would say the latter, because it somehow boosted my confidence that I'm doing something good, and that they appreciate that they value that I'm learning a new language. And in Bulgaria at that time, English was making a lot of progress because there were more television programs in English, and English was introduced in most of the schools as major or compulsory foreign language. So I would say they were proud of me using that language. And I felt that I stand out in a way.
In a good way.
In a good way,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And this somehow was the spark of me thinking that I want to learn more in English, and I want to communicate with native speakers. At some point, I was so interested in that language that I was willing to watch television only in English, to find programs in the English language. At that time, I don't think we had such opportunity at home, but later on, well, there were more programs and so on that I could watch in English and practice my listening skills. My speaking skills were developed, I would say, later on, because the only people I could communicate with was either the teacher or some other classmates, which were not that diligent in my eyes back then. So there was also, when I think about it, the other side of the coin, because when I was a teenager, so in my adolescent years, I wanted also to show off in a way in my group that okay, I learned things from my English classes because we discuss cultural differences. We don't talk only about things that take place in Bulgaria, but we also talk about England, about the United States. This, to a certain extent, broadens your horizons. Oh, wow, they're big red buses. I have never seen something like this. Even if you look at students' books, you see already some different cultural differences that you would never be introduced if you don't get into learning, acquiring new languages. So this was the other spark of, okay, so languages give you open doors that you can't really get the opportunity of if you don't speak the language.
Especially from the place you were coming from, to the
Exactly.
environment you were born.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the exposure of English came through only through books and through teachers,
Exactly.
especially in the early years that you were saying, and
Yes.
later also through television.
Through television, yes. Social media, not so much, because
There was no
no
social
social
media
media.
other than TV.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe my brother was also a good catalyst
Yeah.
for me to develop my English skills, because he also brought from different places, I don't know, magazines in
Wow.
English about music, because he loved listening to different types of rock
Okay.
groups at
I
that
see.
time, Deep Purple, or I don't know. I can't think of anything other groups at the moment, but he was a fan of Deep Purple. Yes, so this was also another trigger for me. Okay, I now understand actual language use from magazines, from external sources that he found somewhere, that he brought from, either from the groups that he was part of or whatever. But it was very interesting to me, and I'm also grateful that he has also noticed that I'm interested in that. He's much older than me, so he could figure out for himself what his smaller sister finds interesting.
It seems very interesting that you found the love for linguistics as soon as you entered the school system. There were exposures. Were the teachers really good? Because if I think of my English teachers, we were exposed to English, I think, much later in our schooling system. Because I went to a regional language school that was Bengali, and I think English was introduced only in fifth standard. But by then, everybody knew how the alphabets are, you knew how to read,
Yes.
but real sentence forming started, I think, from standard fifth. Even then, I think the teachers were mainly teaching in Bengali, explaining in Bengali, and using English only, here and there, I would say. Much later, I think seventh or eighth, we got very good teachers who would speak in English. The whole language class will be in English.
Right.
And I found myself in difficult times that I was finding it hard to understand the language because everything was in English.
Yes.
And I remember I sat down beside a good friend of mine who understood everything. And she was so good that she used to whisper to me whenever I said, I don't understand that.
Yes.
I don't understand this part of the sentence. And we both will go back to the listening to it and then only whisper when I don't understand something. So this kind of help, I think, for 2 months went in and to shape me to follow the class again. And that was really great help. After that, I think my father also started noticing that he always used to encourage, but then he would start getting English newspaper. English in India is another whole story. We are not like Bulgaria in India because we were ruled by the English for 200
Yes.
years. We are exposed to it in a different way.
Yes.
But for you, it's a totally different case in Bulgaria, right? So were the teachers in from initial years, were they really good, or they were also adopting to the new language system? Was it for them their core language that they were trained in? I'm asking basically what was the level of the teachers. Were they any role model or any mentors in schooling system?
Yes, thank you for bringing this up, because I've also thought about this when I was growing up. Because if I have to compare the initial introduction to the language from the teachers back then at school and what I have been exposed to later on, to more advanced language learning um, environments, I would say my very first language teachers were really advanced teachers. They were not only qualified for teaching a foreign language, they were qualified to capture the interest of the small child and to develop it in a way that the child develops a natural, genuine interest in the language. And I still remember these teachers. They were relatively young at the time, maybe in their early 30s. And I could imagine that they have also gained experience outside Bulgaria because I don't remember them having, for example, any struggles, linguistic struggles at that time. So I could imagine that they have also gained experience outside Bulgaria without being politically constrained, restricted, because during the Soviet times, this movement traveling in foreign countries was not always possible. But for younger generations, I would think that they have already had the opportunities to go outside Bulgaria to gain experience if they wanted to develop themselves professionally in language studies. So I would think I was exposed to quality language teaching. And I'm still grateful to my very first English teachers. Miss Vazirova was the first one, and she was really the very first one because I remember my mother also talking to her at one point how I'm doing with the language. And I still remember the teacher explaining certain things, certain basic rules in English, explaining them into Bulgarian first, because once you're new, and now as I think about it, what you are telling me from your experience, this might have been extreme challenge. I don't think I would have adapted myself that easily if we have learned the language only in English. So it was, let's say, a smooth transition, and she was very, very good at introducing the students to the language in a smooth way. And she was qualified to teach children in particular a foreign language.
Very nice. You mentioned that your brother played a role.
Yes.
Also, do you find this path as a linguist? What role did your family play during your childhood or much later in life? How much support they had been, and also much later when you took the decision to do a PhD? Um, was there a conversation? Was there a guidance, or by then you were quite independent to take the decision?
Well, I would say that my family hasn't played a very big role in my final decision to go into linguistics. They have been, however, very open to all my decisions, all my choices, professional choices, in the sense that they have allowed me to have the freedom to explore what and where I would like to develop myself. My parents, well, my mother has a master in history, so it is very different from what I was interested in. And to be frank, I wasn't such a person interested in political studies or Bulgarian history because she specialized in that. My father has nothing to do with academia. Of course, he has done his academic studies, but he didn't continue professionally in what he has studied. So he changed, he did other specializations. So I wouldn't say that they have pushed me into going into academia, and they have never actually thought of me that I would go into that direction.
Why do you say that?
I mean, I have had all sorts of interests till I realized that I wanted to study in a more detailed manner languages, linguistics in particular. So I wanted to do sports, I wanted to do dancing, anything else that you can think of apart from languages. But I thought that languages should be just an accompanying force, or
Okay.
let's say an asset
Mhm.
to everything else that I might have gone into, but not
Which age are you talking about now?
maybe in the adolescence.
It's like school leaving age, or
Exactly,
okay.
school
Mhm.
leaving age. And when I talking about this particular period, which was a very critical period for me to decide really what I would like to study. And you mentioned that at the very beginning of our discussion that this might have been the usual path that everyone at that time followed, but I decided not to stick to that
Mhm.
because first of all, I didn't see myself in that light, or in studying this and perhaps maybe working that as well.
So you're talking about here dance and sports.
Yes, because there was nothing unique to to my let's say sports or dance qualities. I wasn't doing intensive sports or dancing. I was doing it mostly for a leisure, but it was
For the love of it.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And I could say that it definitely played a very crucial role because it develops your, let's say, self-esteem to a certain extent, your social skills, discipline.
Yeah.
But other than that, I couldn't see myself
Mhm.
being professional in
Mhm.
that respect. So I had to really switch back to something more realistic, especially when I was finishing school after the maturity exams. I had
What
to.
it is called in Bulgarian?
It's called Matura.
Okay.
Matura is these very final exams. So we have two of them based on two subjects of your choice that you need to basically pass these exams and validate that you have finished school successfully. And this Matura is required later for higher education.
So after school, you have to go for your bachelor's, and then you have to
Exactly.
show that these are the two subjects you are an expert of as you leave the
Not
school.
yeah.
Or
The thing with the Matura in Bulgaria is that you can use the grade from these exams to apply for a program at the university. And if it happens that, for example, you're applying for a program in which mathematics is one of the major subjects or the major qualification, and you have done a Matura in mathematics, and it's high enough for you to be admitted in the university, then it can be used.
okay.
But it doesn't have to be a a matura on a subject that you want to apply, for example,
I see.
in
I
the
see.
university.
It's a specialization, some of some kind
Yes, yes.
that you have to choose two of them
Yes,
among all the others. But every student is going through the same set of subjects,
exactly.
and every one of them is choosing two specializations which can differ from the other student, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, as far as I can remember, at that time, there was among these two, there is one obligatory, which is an exam in literature and Bulgarian language. So, this was compulsory for everyone. And then the student is allowed to choose either one or two extra exams.
Okay.
So the compulsory is for everyone. So they have to, well, two compulsory exams, but one of them is compulsory for everyone. And this is the exam in Bulgarian language and literature. And the second exam is of your choice. It can be based on any subject.
I see.
Mathematics, physics,
I see.
a foreign language,
Got it.
music. And the choice is usually related to your further
Studies, the goal for further
interests.
studies. Okay.
Yes. So if you're willing to study mathematics or anything in this direction, economics or financial studies, banking, it makes sense that you also do an exam in mathematics.
Got it.
My second exam was in English because I thought that I would have higher grades in these two subjects, in literature and also in the English language. So I thought that I shouldn't risk or let's say maybe go outside my comfort zone at that time. So these were my Matura exams. And maybe I should also say that these Matura exams and their grades can be used in some universities as admission grades for different programs. In Sofia University, where I did my BA, I had to also sit an admission exam there. So these Matura exams were not enough.
These are qualifying for giving the admission test. Is it correct?
Yes.
The Matura was the qualifying thing.
Yes.
And then if you're qualified, you can appear for the entrance exam.
Yes.
Or university
Exactly.
exam. Okay.
So the Matura basically allows you to apply for a position in the university. If you don't pass the Matura exams, you haven't finished school successfully. So you're not allowed to
go to the university.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in other universities, for example, you don't need to sit an admission exam to be accepted in a program. In Sofia University, it was different. It was much stricter. If you want to, for example, as I did, go into philologies, the Matura exam was not enough because it was not advanced enough to show your linguistic skills.
Okay.
So they had their own admission exams, which was at that time, as far as I can remember, a complex exam. So I had to prepare in advance for it.
So, but you appeared for it in the same year you appeared for your Matura.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. So the Matura usually takes place in May in Bulgaria, and the admission exams for the universities are either late July or something like this.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So before we jump into your bachelor's, I want to also go back a little bit to the role of the family and how that shaped you. You had once told me that your mother never pressurized you. As you said, your family never pressurized you to do anything. They gave you full freedom. You said that up to grade 4, you were good at studies perhaps, but you were not a very studious child, but your mother kept patience and never had scolded you for this. And it I think it's a very important point because it's rare, especially in the environment I have grown up also. It's rare to keep patience with a 10-year-old. If until 10-year-old they haven't found anything that they're keen on doing, especially in studies, I think there is a tendency of parents to getting a bit restless. But I also believe that these qualities of your mother or your family, that freedom that they gave you, that the time, no pressure environment that they gave you, it also helped you in a way to follow your path, to fall in love with subjects on your own pace. Do you think that's true?
I fully agree, actually, and I'll tell you in greater detail where I think this is important um, for parents and also for children to maybe to follow their own pace for everything. And I guess my mom has realized that as well, because she had her experience with her first child. And she has also told me that when she had my brother, she really wanted him to be diligent from a very young age. So he started school at the age of 6, and she remembers very distinctly that he is a child, that he wants to go out and play with the kids. And she was pressing him to write the alphabet and to be very diligent in school, which at that age is a torture.
True.
But she realized that at a later stage in her life, once my brother graduated and so on.
But you cannot
Yeah.
blame parents. I think now I'm a parent and I know that the first child is always teaching you how to be a parent.
Exactly.
And that
Yes.
second one, you are perfect, perfectly
Exactly.
ready.
You have built experience.
Exactly.
You know what are the things that you didn't do well and
Yeah.
that you want to improve later.
Yeah.
But she has told me this, and she blamed herself for not realizing that she shouldn't press her child at that early age to be that diligent, and she didn't do this with me. So she learned her her lesson, let's say, let's put it like this.
Lucky you.
So she was much more patient with me.
Okay.
She did give me the freedom to explore my own let's say strengths and weaknesses, what I wanted to do. Of course, I had to work on my homeworks after school. This was without doubt, but she wasn't perhaps that, let's say, strict in a way she was with my brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe I might have subconsciously abused that freedom on her side, because she was mostly the person who worked closely with me, not so much my father. And she also has the experience of a teacher, although she didn't work with young school children. She worked with, let's say, adolescents, teenagers, but nevertheless, she was keen on working with kids, and also she was observing my my journey at school. And she has also told me, because I don't have vivid memories of this, that when I went to school, I was perhaps the only one in class who was ignorant about having a proper notebook, or just naming my notebooks with the names of the school subjects. Or everyone around me was very diligent, and they were sitting properly, and they were always raising hands.
They're the first child.
Most probably, yes. That's a very good point. Possibly, I don't know. And I was the total opposite. But later on, perhaps I have noticed this myself, that I'm the weirdo in the group, that this is not the proper way of presenting yourself, of let's say studying or preparing your homeworks. And I started to notice other girls around me, and I was friends with these girls, and they were so diligent in everything, in the way they were talking, in the way they were putting their notebooks on the desks. They all their, for example, students' books, notebooks had inscriptions with their names. I didn't have that.
Okay.
I didn't realize that I need to have
Okay.
that as well. But my parents also didn't tell me. They
Yeah.
perhaps wanted me to figure out that this is important, this is
I
part of the
see, I see.
process. And I started becoming more and more conscious about what was happening around me.
Okay.
And
What age is this?
maybe after the 4th grade. So
Okay.
I was
Mhm.
I was a bad student in the
I
primary
don't know.
stage.
I know in a normal grading system, bad and good can be very different. But I think each child has their own path, own pace,
Exactly.
and own time to figure out things. So
Exactly.
giving the space, I think, is important, as you also have noticed in your case that tremendously might have helped you when you switched. That switch occurred in your head that, oh, I have to be that, instead of your parent telling you repeatedly, and you are doing it by force. When you find that, you stick to it and you find your own reason to do it.
Exactly.
So I think it's more effective that way.
Exactly. And perhaps maybe this interest in the foreign language has also played a role for this, showing to my mom that, okay, I can be very ignorant about all the rest of the things, but I do like naming things in another language,
Yeah.
being diligent in this respect. So this might have been also the trigger to spread the interest, not only to focus the interest not only on English but also on other subjects, and use this motivation to be a more diligent.
What a beautiful way to look at it, really. You were saying that because I found my confidence in one thing that I am good at, people appreciated me. You got confidence in yourself that, yes, I can be good at other things if I pay attention to it.
Yes, absolutely. This is a very good way to put it, because that the
Beautiful.
reality. And maybe it also gave me confidence to think that, okay, so if I'm doing well in other things, nothing can stop me. So once you realize that you're good at one thing, and then you use that same confidence or motivation and transfer it to other things that you're doing, it gives you the sense that you're unstoppable, that you can do whatever you want as long as you put your mind into it. And I still believe it.
That's perfect. That's a lifelong motivation, and we now know you. Of course, you are unstoppable. You are you are achieving things since then. So let's go to your Sofia University experience now. You went to study philology.
Yes.
Did you have a notion beforehand how it's going to turn out? Did university satisfy all your needs, or in the sense that was the university the way you thought it to be?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Maybe before I tell you about my experience, my first academic experience in Sofia, I should tell you about a few events beforehand, because they were also very major milestones, which also to a certain extent predetermine, influenced my choice to go into philologies.
Okay.
So one major milestone was sitting and passing a internationally recognized certificate in English, which is called the Certificate of Advanced English, CAE. It was called back then, and it was a very popular, very well recognized certificate, internationally recognized, as I said. And most of my classmates were intending to sit this exam in English after studying diligently the language. So it was something that I wanted to do, and I was preparing myself years on end.
Can I ask you at this point,
Yes.
why were your friends appearing for this? Was this for living for higher studies abroad?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was the major reason. Most of them were willing to do this exam because most of them wanted to go abroad and continue their high education there.
Okay.
Not in Bulgaria in particular. Well, for some programs, they did require such a certificate as well in Bulgaria. For example, for let's say, international programs where you have to verify your English skills, for instance. But most of them did the exam so that they can go outside Bulgaria and do their BAs abroad.
Okay.
Yes, so as I said, I prepared for this exam. Very important, perhaps one of the major steps that I had to take to validate what I have studied throughout the years. And I remember that I had 2 attempts. My very first attempt was unsuccessful, and it was one of the greatest failures back then for me because I didn't pass the exam.
Did you appear in the same year twice?
No,
Was it? Okay.
it was in 2 different years,
Okay.
2 subsequent years
So
actually.
the exams set that apart,
Yes.
like 1 year apart.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. So
that
that
sucks.
you build up confidence again. And it was, for me, a major critical event. And that was one of my very first experience in which I tested my mindset, or
Wow.
I had to actually change my mindset, because so far I have believed that if I really put in efforts and do the hard work and really try hard to pass the exams, it usually worked and always worked. Most of the times it worked, and with really high scores and grades. But for that particular exam, the approach that I have used by that time and that I have relied on didn't work.
So that was your first failure as such.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That was and it was a big failure in my eyes back then, because it was an internationally recognized exam. It was a big thing in my eyes. So I was not supposed to fail it, because I have been preparing myself for such a long time. And it turned out that I didn't lack the skills, the English skills. They required us to demonstrate speaking, writing, listening, and reading skills. And I do remember that my speaking skills at that time were not at the level that I wanted them to be. And also my reading or listening skills might not have been that great. And now, as I think about it, I do realize what might have caused these gaps or led to these gaps. But there were other things that I realized that I lacked in the meantime. Namely, I didn't have the skills to work in examination environment, meaning that I didn't know how to work for time, how to basically present myself in a way that I'm in an examination environment.
Okay.
These are additional skills that no one taught us during the preparation period. I was preparing mostly to develop linguistic skills rather than preparing for exams.
I love it because
Yeah.
I also think that I also cracked it only later, like later in my bachelor's, perhaps, to differentiate between learning for yourself and
Yes.
learning for exams. Those
Exactly.
are two different things. And studying for exam looks quite different than learning it for love.
Exactly.
Initially I was like, if I do it for love, I am, as you said, like if you put yourself out there, you are doing the hard work, you are doing everything, and you are learning, you know that you are growing, there is a growth.
Yes.
But it still doesn't give you always the result, because there is a difference between being in the exam, being on the day of the exam, appearing for the exam. That preparation looks quite different than learning it for love. You might have known all the facts, but the time management, as you were talking about,
Time management, one thing. And also, no one teaches you how to learn. This is another thing. And this is something that you perhaps develop over the years. You realize what
Your style.
yes, your style of
Mhm.
acquiring knowledge.
Yeah.
So at that time, maybe I have been in my 15 or 16 years old. I still didn't have competence to realize what is the most effective way for me to acquire knowledge. I spent hours on end learning things because I was enjoying learning about them, but I didn't have the ability to synthesize information, to extract the core information from tons of materials.
So tell us then, what did you change? Let's go into the detail, because this
Yeah.
is a really, I think, important point. I think many of us realize it later. I don't know the Gen Z, how they how they think about things, but I
Yeah.
think it's an important point to discuss that these are important things to learn about yourselves much early in life.
Absolutely.
And I think lots of educational system do not focus on this part.
Maybe
So
only
let's
now they're starting.
obviously there are some now, but I'm pretty sure not all of them are focusing on this. So let's talk about this a little bit in detail. What
Yes.
are the things you changed? What are the, if you can give some tips or things that in general the students can implement who are appearing for international exams, national level exams, about time management, about change of mindset, about how to learn for exams, from a few things if you can mention.
Yes, now as I think about it, there are so many things that can be mentioned, and I guess it's very different, as
Yeah,
you
yeah.
said. But you mentioned it very well that it's a very personal style of how you can adapt to the way of learning. But what I have noticed with myself is that with every grade, you get to be introduced to more and more subjects, and they're of different, how can I say, so different focus. You have different focus in different subjects. So the way I wanted to learn effectively so that I can have time also for leisure time, for sports, for hobbies, to meet people outside, was to identify for each lesson what is the intention. Why am I learning this type of information? So, coming up with a broader picture of, okay, how, in what ways this particular lesson that I'm reading about relates to what I know previously, and what is the intention after reading it? In what ways I augment, enrich my knowledge in this particular topic? So, being conscious about what you're reading, once you know the intention of the text and what is the primary aim after reading it, gives you also an idea to be selective about what should stay. All the information that you have went through, that you have read, that you have scanned, skimmed through, or read in detail. Obviously, you cannot remember every single detail from the information that you have read, but you can be very selective in terms of how a particular information is related to the broader intention, the broader purpose of the text. And these strategies did help me to also manage my time, in the sense of I'm reading some text strategically, in the sense that I know what is the major question that I want to answer by reading this text. And I therefore strategically filter the information that is either direct answer to the question, or it helps me answer that question by providing examples, or by providing more elaboration on a particular topic. So that was a conscious understanding of how I should go about preparing myself, not only at school, but also for these particular exams. Because maybe 80% of these exams is only being strategic of how to perform the tasks.
I totally agree. I think during the time I was mentioning also at the end of my bachelor's, I was preparing also for a lot of national level exams.
Yeah.
And this is what exactly I did. I applied strategy. And exactly as you mentioned, knowing that what are the kind of knowledge are expected from you after reading this chapter, what
Exactly.
is the main goal. Not everything is important, so you might keep it in mind, but this is not you should focus on when you are revising.
Yes.
Or your revision is most important in that case, also appearing for
Yes.
exams. But the way you revise also, before you revise also, you have to decide which are the parts you revise, which are the important parts. And the way you explained, that's exactly the strategy I also had applied a lot of times to crack the exams. Thank you for giving your strategies so beautifully and so eloquently, because I feel like our listeners can be benefited from this, applying this in their own life.
So true, yeah.
In their studies. And what were the other you said couple of incidents happened?
Yes, basically that was in continuation to this exam, because the broader relevance is that this didn't really make me feel, let's say, it didn't discourage me in a way to forget about my chances of passing the exam, or even intentions to continue working with a foreign language, but rather it was like a trampoline. It just made me feel, okay, now I need to really forget about this failure. It's a failure, of course. You learn from your mistakes and you bounce back, stand up, and you just go ahead and come back with even better results. So that was the experience, basically, after 2 days of crying, of course.
It's allowed. It's allowed.
You realize, okay, I shouldn't self-pity myself anymore. I should do what I'm supposed to do. And I believe that was the game-changing moment when I thought, it's the way I approach the problem. It's not sitting in my in my pity, but rather really focusing on the weaknesses that have led to that situation, working on these weaknesses and improving the situation, rather than focusing on how bad I performed at that particular moment, because I might have had just a bad day.
Truly.
Yes.
And it's such a nice way also to look at life that way.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it applies to every moment of life.
Exactly, exactly. So that was one milestone, a very important milestone that told me, don't give up. That was just one incident.
Did this mindset change come to you for certain reason, looking at certain people, or it just occurred to you one day?
Maybe it's also inspired by my family dynamics, because not in terms of such academic events, but just in general, because I would think that my parents are very resilient people. So even if there are certain struggles or challenges, they don't really give up and they don't back down. They decide to find a solution to the problem. And what I have noticed is that they decide to approach the problem from different perspectives. So there is no one way. Or most of the times, it's not only one way of approaching a problem. And perhaps this might have been there somewhere encoded already in my mind that this is not the end point.
That's a beautiful lesson a family can give to a kid, not to give up.
Not to give up.
Yeah.
That's not the right time to give up. And as I said, this is just one incidence of your performance, and this shouldn't be basically
The deciding factor.
Exactly, the thing that decides who you are and whether or not you're good at that particular exam or performance or whatever. This was just a preparation stage. Let's put it like this.
This no give up mentality,
Yeah.
it actually helps in life and helped you in your career. So obviously when you come from this environment,
Yes.
failing it once doesn't bother you. You are always thinking of how can I improve it more.
Yes.
Because you are not only giving up, but you also see your growth there.
Exactly.
Right? In
Yes.
this 1 year, you are not where you had been before.
Yes.
You had seen your progress. So I think in certain cases, you have to give up if you do not see this growth.
Yes.
Yeah, in your case, as you said, like I was seeing that I just have to change that. I just have to work there differently. And you were
Exactly.
looking through this lens, basically, that there is a progress, there is tremendous progress, but there are some lack, and I can work on these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And not letting yourself be defined by one particular case or incidence. Because we're, after all, humans.
True.
And we can learn from every situation.
True.
So this was definitely one of those moments that helped me realize that there are still things that I need to work on. I'm definitely not the best version of myself. And this is not maybe the ultimate what I can achieve. So I still need to go back to what I have been doing and focus on those things that need to be improved. And yes, there was the second attempt, which was the successful attempt. And by that time, I have already gained experience on how to learn, on how to strategically work on tasks, examination tasks. And this has also improved my self confidence. And I remember even during the speaking task, I also demonstrated some more confidence in comparison to the very first attempt. So body language can be also very telling.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the exam scenario.
Yeah.
You have to portray confidence.
Exactly.
And
how you present yourself
yes.
is always important.
Yeah, because also it's the only opportunity for you to show yourself, but also for them to choose from 100 of candidates. You have to make an impression. You have to make a first impression. So that's also the thing. As soon as you walk in from the door, it's kind of, you give a first impression, and your body language gives that impression.
Yes.
And then they decide whether to listen to you or not.
Yes.
So everything is step by step. So I think it's very, very important that one should also focus on these small things.
Exactly. Yes.
So all these things led you to success.
It led me to one of the things, the stepping stones to basically me deciding on applying for a philology program.
What is philology?
A philology is basically a program in which students study about languages from a cultural perspective, a linguistic perspective, where you study from a scientific standpoint how language works, but also you learn about literature, different periods in the culture of, let's say, of a particular country, their authors, and how they viewed life in that particular time. So philology is a combination of cultural studies, literature, and also linguistics.
There's no philosophy.
There was philosophy and also pedagogy, but it was to the periphery, let's say, of the program. We used to study them maybe 2 semesters, no more than this.
Okay.
Of course, if you want to have them as elective courses, you could build on that, but they were only elective courses.
Okay.
They were not part of the compulsory program.
Okay.
So, yes, philology was a, a big step for me because, first of all, at that time, as I told you, I wasn't entirely sure whether that's my path, whether I really want to professionally go into the philologies with English, and whether I want to become either a teacher of English, a translator, or a professor in one of these subjects: linguistics, literature, or cultural studies. So I didn't have much input from mentors or from other people who have had experience in philologies. My parents couldn't help me in any way in this respect. So my decision was only my decision, that I basically relied on my experience so far. My final decision to go into that direction was completely based on the experience I have gained from school. Maybe teachers have also provided me with some guidance where I can apply in Bulgaria, which are the best programs in this respect, and universities as well.
Unless you end up being there, you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
But you have kind of a picture that it should look like this, or it would look like this. And I guess in that respect, the mentors or the teachers in that scenario can only help you in telling you what are the places you can go for,
Yeah.
for if you are aiming for higher studies, right?
Exactly.
So you had that support and you chose Sofia University for that. Isn't it?
Yes.
Was it the first time going away from home, or you
Yes.
didn't? Okay.
That was the very first time I left my hometown, which is, I would say, for Bulgaria standards, far away.
Okay. Yeah.
from Sofia. And
How far it is?
uh, more than 300 kilometers
Okay.
away. So for Bulgaria, that's far.
I think it is for many reasons. I think when you are a student, that can be far for financial reason,
Exactly.
for availability of transport in that region of the
Exactly.
world. So it can be for many reasons.
Yes.
The number doesn't tell us anything. You were far away, and so you had to found your own accommodation and
Exactly.
everything.
Yes.
So how was this experience, first time moving away from home and settling down in Sofia or nearby Sofia somewhere?
It was hard for my parents.
Okay.
I would say I was looking for being independent, I must say.
Okay.
I was also a little bit afraid of moving away. So mixed feelings. I was excited to be independent, to be a student in the capital of Bulgaria. It's way bigger city, so with a lot of opportunities, more people from around the world, so it's an international also. But at the same time, I was afraid whether I will live up to my own expectations, that I will be organized enough, that will be a good student, that I wouldn't be, let's say, a load for my parents. I didn't want them to support me for a very long time. So
Sure.
the initial year, When I went to Sofia, they did support me financially, and also they did help me to find an accommodation. But after the first year, once I adjusted to the circumstances, once I got familiar with the university, also with the workload, I started to find my way, let's say, in Sofia. And also, I started working during my first year, not first year, second year of my studies, and I was teaching English. I was giving courses in a private language school called Britannica. So it was a very well-established language school in Sofia, and they were hiring philology students at that time. It was a good opportunity for the students to apply their knowledge, to practice, to gain experience, of course, for a very low price, not very well paid, but that was a different story. But for me, it was a good chance to prove to myself that I can
Manage yourself, basically.
Yes.
So how did you do the time management? Because I guess you were also expected to
Yes.
go to
The lectures.
yeah, and then also during daytime you have to teach.
So the teaching part was not during the day.
Okay, fine.
And that was a good compromise,
Yeah.
basically. The classes usually took place after 6 p.m. and my lectures were during the day, so they didn't overlap in a way. So I didn't miss any lectures at all.
Mhm.
And I was a diligent student. I was attending all lectures, I must say. I had, of course, preference for the linguistics courses, which were more practically oriented rather than the literature and the cultural studies. But I found the cultural studies and the literature a good addition to what we were investigating about language structures and language use, the socio-cultural aspects of language production. So yes, so I did find time to work and also to go to lectures to prepare myself. It made me feel grown up, in a way. Maybe that was the first time I felt that I can rely on myself. And when I got my first salary, which was minimal salary, but it was still a validation that I'm already independent mom
Yeah.
and dad.
I can support myself from now on.
Yes, yes. And I also started paying my own bills in Sofia at a
Yeah.
later point.
That's very inspiring that you could manage to do all these things and still did all your studies so diligently.
Well, this didn't come with entirely no sacrifices, I would say. The major sacrifice was that I didn't have too many social contacts. So I had, of course, colleagues that I communicated with, that we met on campus. But outside our lectures and our academic life, I didn't have the time to, let's say, explore the nightlife of Sofia.
Yeah,
Or
that many of
Yes.
your maybe classmates were doing it.
Oh, believe me, there were people who were very active in that respect.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. But
I see.
maybe that was the only sacrifice, that I didn't have the time to explore leisure activities, to network. That played not such a good role afterwards. When you want to be more connected, especially if you want to find better job opportunities, you need to be socially connected.
Mhm. So you think that for us of bachelor students in your department, it is important to go out socializing not
Yes.
only because of the fun part of it, but
Yes.
also for professional reasons.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
yes. Something that I didn't do and I regret not doing. And there were people from my group at the university who were, I would say, more active in this respect, and who were also attending conferences, going to different events which were organized at the university, for example, readings or let's say, talks by famous professors. I did try to attend such events, but it was difficult for me, and they were not maybe the priority. And now, as I think about it, I should have done this more because they really give you the opportunity to meet people from elsewhere, to connect, to talk about things that you're interested in, and even to expand your horizons where you see yourself after graduating that program, which I didn't get because I didn't have access to such people apart from the professors that were teaching.
Do you think it was also a stressful time of your life because you were not socializing? Because you were, obviously there are two things in it. Like, you were happy and you were, the first time you thought you were independent, you can, that was the biggest thing you realized the first time, that I can't manage myself financially,
Yes.
or time wise, balancing many things. But the downside in all this is that you sacrifice your leisure time. You, not only the professional thing, when you go out socializing, obviously that gives you a relaxation, that re-energize you for the tasks that you have to do professionally.
Yes.
Do you think yourself that you missed out on the that part of life, that leisure part, and because of that there was some stress created in the life? Or
Yes, absolutely. As I said, there were consequences because of me not figuring out on time how to strike this balance between personal life and professional development, because I was so focused on being professionally adequate, of being academically adequate, that I just left my personal life at the back burner. It sounds very very drastic, but in a way it was like this. And at a later point it had its consequences, leading to, let's say, isolation, not finding maybe the right words to approach people. Yes.
or a friend group that you can rely on,
Yeah,
or something on,
exactly.
something like this?
I was missing that because I didn't have that. Apart from some colleagues who you could rely on, of course.
Yeah.
It was not, I wouldn't claim that they were, the bond was not that strong to call them really friends on which you could rely ultimately on whatever.
Okay.
Now, as I think about it, this was my fault not to get to that point of spending more time with the people I liked or I found worth spending time with, so that I can create a stronger bond with them.
But you were also, I guess, achieving different milestones which they were not achieving. So it's all we have is 24 hours a day, so you can only put so much stuff into it, right? Do you think, looking back, that had you gone to all these meetup, could you have got a different professional opportunity, and would you have taken it if it were given to you?
Maybe I would have had more input for sure, and maybe this might have influenced my later decisions how to continue my studies. Why? Because after attending one such very brief, it's called speed mentoring program, that was towards the end of my bachelor degrees, because you realize that you want to figure out where you want to position yourself after graduating. What can you do with your knowledge? How can you continue your studies? And there was this speed mentoring program, which I remember ran into very spontaneously. I didn't know about it well in advance to prepare myself for it. I found about it from flyers at the university, but I thought that it would be a good place to start from, even if it is just for a few hours. You hear people talking about different um, options, job opportunities for people like me. Um, so I went there, and it was really a short, brief meeting with a person who was working back then in some kind of cloud company.
Cloud
Uh,
computing.
yes, cloud computing. And I had no clue what was a cloud back then. So I was really a theory oriented linguist who was used to teaching languages, did not have even the perspective how I can combine my linguistic skills with technologies. And that was also
Perfect.
another part that opened other horizons, that
Okay.
I shouldn't limit myself. I shouldn't put restrictions to my ideas of how I can use my knowledge and where I can work. So we talked about what I'm interested in, what I'm studying, and there were a lot of students also who were seeking for advice. Most of them were coming from very technical programs like informatics, technologies, and whatnot, computer science. So I had nothing to do, but at the same time, you realize that your knowledge is not redundant. It can be definitely integrated, implemented, and can be combined with computer science and technological skills if you know the right approach and if you know, again, what kind of problem you want to solve with that. So this was also an enlightenment for me. It was an enlightening moment for me that I can also think of other perspectives of placing myself, presenting myself on the job market, and also gave me also some more input on what other skills I need to develop if I want to combine linguistics, let's say, with technologies.
Wow. This is amazing. It seems like you were at the right time at the right place.
Yes, it was the moment which also again predefined how I continued and what kind of later decisions I made professionally.
Yep.
But if I had attended more such mentoring programs, or I don't know, events or talks, they would have definitely given me even more ideas on what is best for me from that moment onwards.
If you had done it earlier,
Yes.
then you could have done more with those
Yes.
kind of information.
Yes.
Okay. And so this definitely seems to have shaped your later choices
Yes.
in doing masters
Yes.
and later in PhD.
Yes.
So after these, I guess you had decided to go for masters somehow, right? Okay.
It was
So tell me about this journey, like from that moment to the deciding for the masters, or even choosing that masters is the right path for you.
Yeah. I must say here that this meeting, this mentoring, speed mentoring event, as you said, it was at the right moment, at the right place. But the desire basically to go to that event was, I would say, based on something much deeper, which was already brewing in me.
Okay.
I would say, for quite some time. Because when I started the philologies, this linguistic aspect was very important, as I told you, how to understand, or to understand how languages work. And I don't know whether I watched something in this respect when I was doing my BA studies, or whether I read something related to artificial intelligence and how linguists are a very, very integral part of the whole process of helping machines to process natural language, to also to interpret
Or
and
predict, yeah.
nowadays generate language. So I was thinking about this, but I couldn't really rationalize it. I couldn't really have the conscious understanding how my knowledge as a linguist can be beneficial to, let's say, robotics or.
Wait a minute here, because these you were talking about way before
Yes.
this AI revolution. You are talking about which year now?
2010, 11.
Yes, you reading about it or
Yes.
seeing it somewhere
Yes.
is also a rare chance, because it was not everywhere
No.
like it is now.
Of course.
And also it finding a way to be brewed in you, that is also a very important point, that you had an inclination
Yes.
in you yourself already to go towards technology, to find some application of your knowledge and learn the technology. I mean, what I want to say here, that you had in you the eagerness to learn new techniques and new subjects, if it recurs to apply your knowledge
Yes.
that you have gathered.
Yes. To me, it sounded like science fiction at
Mm.
that time. Of course, the history of natural language processing tools goes back times immemorial.
Mhm.
But what I was introduced to was a short video of some robot who was making attempts to produce natural language.
Okay.
And that was, I still remember that I have somewhere the link to this YouTube video.
I see.
And that was so inspirational for me.
Mhm.
And this is really science fiction, but you could reflect on that, how knowing about what language is, what how language works in terms of its structure, in its production, perception, can give developers, also engineers, information on how to program these machines to be able to process natural language, or the human language. So I thought there might be some connection with it. I don't know how this can be actually applied, but maybe I really should understand first how language works for us humans. And then maybe this can be transferred to machines.
And then you see the flyer.
And then later on, so this happens in 2 or 3 years span,
I see,
towards
I
the
see.
end of my
Okay.
studies. So
Okay.
it has been this idea that it sounds very interesting that linguistics can find, as you said, application in robotics, has been there throughout my studies, but I have never had the opportunity to have an actual manifestation, to attend, let's say, talks about this, or to read about this. And as I said, this might have been also the reason why I went to this speed mentoring program, because I wanted to see what kind of applications linguistics might have in the real world outside. And this person from this cloud company somehow opened my eyes that yes, we can combine technologies with your language skills.
And then from there on, it's a long process, you're saying, that gave you some direction. And also simultaneously, it might have occurred to you that you want to do higher studies and
Yes.
pursue a master
Yes.
in the future. Both of this combined then together.
Yes. So my experience in BA, in particular, there was a professor who also was very supportive in me applying for an MA in linguistics, because she, I would say, have gone into that direction as well. So she knew already what I can expect if I go into that direction. And I can mention her name. So Professor Ivanina Ivanova, she is a professor in computational linguistics. So she wasn't teaching us any computational linguistic approaches back then, because there was no such course per se, but she was teaching us syntax, English syntax, and these syntactic approaches that she was teaching us can be then applied to computational models.
Sure.
But I was really naive at that time. I didn't really have the understanding in what ways this syntactic knowledge can be applied later on. But she already had this idea that I was doing well in syntax, and that was my strong discipline among all branches. And she suggested that there are programs in Germany where you can apply your theoretical linguistic knowledge with technological skills in the direction of computational linguistics. So she basically gave me pointers that I might consider, might be interested in. So this is where I got the inspiration or the major source to go into that direction.
And did you have to write a bachelor's thesis for your program?
Yes.
And what was it about? Can you shortly, briefly, if you can explain in a simple language what you did and what were the major questions?
So I don't know whether, so this is not a BA thesis being expected to write it for a period of time to do your own research. So we did have state exams. We did have a written state exam, and we did have an oral state exam. So since I specialized in linguistics, so in the fourth year, we got this specialization year where people who are interested in literature studies have more courses in literature. Those who are interested in translation do a lot of translation, and those who are doing cultural studies do more cultural study oriented courses, and I was doing linguistic courses. So my exams were mostly based on we had, of course, questions from cultural studies and literature, because they cover our whole
Curriculum.
4-year curriculum. But my major written exam was based on linguistic topic, so we had to write an argumentative text based on a question, linguistic question. And that's what I remember. So we did have to produce a coherent text in the end, but in class,
in an exam setup
on campus, yes.
Okay.
We weren't supposed to write independently at home a thesis.
This was part 1 of our conversation with Dr. Iverina Ivanova, a journey through language resilience and turning failures in stepping stones. From falling in love with English, to embracing her failure as fuel, to discovering how her passion for philology could be blended with technology. Iverina reminds us that growth often happens outside our comfort zone, be it taking risks, leaving home, or moving forward despite stress and sacrifices. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who might need a reminder that setbacks are not the end, but the beginning of something new. More to come in part 2 of our conversation as we discuss our master's, PhD, and postdoc work, highlighting the role of a linguist in shaping today's technology. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the DPT Podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep turning your failures into trampolines.